This week on Standpoint, focus turns to Nigeria's electoral process following the Senate's approval of amendments to the Electoral Act, while rejecting provisions that would make electronic transmission of election results mandatory. The decision has reignited debates around electoral transparency, trust in the system, and the future of election credibility in Nigeria. Supporters argue the move reflects practical realities in Nigeria, especially in rural communities, while critics insist it gives room for election manipulation. Now, what does this decision mean for future elections? And does it strengthen or undermine Nigeria's democracy? That conversation begins now. I am Precious Amayu. Welcome to Standpoint. Welcome back, everyone. The Senate has passed the Electoral Act 2022 Amendment Bill 2026 after the third reading. It, however, rejected a proposed amendment which sought to make the electronic transmission of election results mandatory. Under the rejected provision, presiding officers of the Independent National Electoral Commission would have been required to electronically transmit results from each polling unit directly to the IRF portal in real time after the prescribed form EC8A had been signed and stamped by the presiding officer and countersigned by party agents. Instead, the Senate retained the existing provision of the Electoral Act, which allows the presiding officer to transfer the results, including the total number of accredited voters and the results of the ballot, in a manner as prescribed by the Commission. Now, joining me to unpack the implications of this decision and its impact on voter confidence and what it means for Nigeria's democracy is US-based lawyer and political affairs analyst, Dr. Banwo. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, so let's just look at the general review of the Electoral Act before we even narrow down to this particular provision that is creating some sort of big controversy around the country. Some people want it, some people don't. But in general, have we moved the needle compared to where we're coming from in 2023?
To be honest with you, I don't think we have moved the needle. If anything, we have actually moved backwards. I have to be very frank about this with the Senate. Not so much the executive, but the Senate that is supposed to give us better law. See, they fall short of what Nigerians have been demanding for years, which is certainty, transparency, and trust in the process. I mean, let's call a spade a spade. The truth is that in Nigerian elections, fraud rarely happens at the polling unit. It always happens between the polling unit and the collation center. And anything that makes the transition of results from polling booth to the collation center.
Dr. Banwo, sorry, apologies. I need to put you on hold. We need to interrupt our lineup of program now as we cross over to Imo State, where we'll bring you the coverage of the Imo State, the grand finale of Imo State at 50. They've been having several celebrations there, for that state that turned 50 along with other states, but this is a live coverage. Now remember that you can continue to watch this program if you scan the QR code on the screen. You can continue to watch on YouTube and other channels like the BSkyB. All right, Dr. Banwo, you were speaking to the impact or the implications of all of the review we've seen on the Electoral Act.
Yes, I was saying that in Nigeria, the reality is that the fraud or the election fraud really happens in the polling unit. It's always between what happens at the collation center. Okay, so anything that makes transition of results from polling booths to collation centers discretionary instead of mandatory is only leaving room for possible manipulation of results. See, I want to be clear from what people are saying. They have not said there could be no transmission of results. Okay, they've not rejected. They're only saying it's no longer mandatory. Okay, and that is the problem. It's not a ban on technology. It's a refusal to make technology compulsory. But the reality here is that elections are the foundations of our democracy. So when the law makes innovations like electronic transmission optional rather than mandatory, it preserves discretion at exactly the point where certainty is needed the most. So to me, Nigerians have watched elections drift from suspicion to crisis because ambiguities get exploited. So if we aim to deepen democracy, in my own opinion, the legal framework must reduce doubt, not leave it open to interpretation.
And talking about the legal framework, because one of the things they said that they're trying to do is to ensure, because they referred to, because I was listening to one of the senators and he referred to some of the cases we saw in the litigation we saw in the last election. And they say that this particular provision was the major talking point, was the issue of controversy, and that they are trying to erase that controversy in a way that things are setting that when you go to court, you can actually, the court will not have to strike out the case, so you don't have those kind of litigations just because of a particular provision. Have we made that provision better now, or have we now set ourselves up for even more litigation in 2027?
We've set ourselves up more for more litigations, because if you look at it, now that it's discretionary whether you transmit or you don't transmit, meaning that the electoral people can decide to transmit where the thing is favorable to them, and then decide that they want to go manual when it looks that they are losing. So at every point in time, there'll be litigation, because I'm not going to be asking, why did you transmit in Zamfara and you did not transmit in Lagos? Why did you transmit in Rivers and did not transmit in Ogun State? So they're actually, by making things discretionary, they are leaving more room for litigation. But if it is mandatory, then it becomes clear. It's either you did it or you did not do it. And litigations will be reduced. Why they will do this, I don't understand, because in India, Brazil, Ghana, Kenya, these are countries that are similar, even smaller than us in terms of technological advancement. They have made transmission of results mandatory. What are we running from? What is our problem? That why we cannot aim to be better in terms of transmission. But I know there are all the excuses, so we don't have stable power, we don't have this, we don't have that. But if Ghana and Kenya can do it, even Estonia, tiny Estonia, if they can do it, we can work towards it.
But are those seeming excuses, are they valid for those who say, first of all, you mentioned the issue around electricity, and stable electricity, and those who also talk about the internet infrastructure, and that we do not have enough internet penetration around the country, and that could become a problem. That's the excuse of those who support, or the reason given by those who support this recent provision. Do you think that's valid?
No, I hear it. I hear the excuses: poor coverage, network coverage, security risk, logistical challenges. That seems valid when you look at it on the face of it. But when you really think about it, the unspoken reality here is that it is being driven by fear of uncontrollable outcomes. They are fearing elections being too transparent, because you can't tell me we can't do that. We do transactions with our banks now, and it goes through. We do a lot of stuff in Nigeria that requires electricity for transmission and all that, and it works. So why can't our electoral process also aspire to that? It can be done. That should be our aspiration. So for me, they could have actually even reached a middle point, where in areas where transmission can be done, which they will verify before the election, it is mandatory. In areas where they feel that it's too deep in the forest, where they cannot get it done, then they can make it mandatory. But just making it discretionary, but just leaving it discretionary, you are leaving too much room for people to doubt the elections, even if the elections were fair. But the fact that in some places now they will have transmission, in some places they will have manual, that will make people doubt that this election that is coming is free and fair. And that has always been our problem. Every time we have an election, it doesn't matter whether somebody won cleanly or didn't, but the way it's all conducted makes everybody think somebody has rigged the election or not rigged the election. So the job of the Senate was to have cleared that, to make sure that this next election, we don't end up with that. If there's a winner, we can all respect that without them mixing it up. Because what is going to happen, you know what's going to happen. In some areas where there's some people are winning, they might all of a sudden say there's no transmission. Then they go and manipulate the results. in areas where they are winning, they transmit, and it becomes a mixed match. So I don't think we have improved in the way we want to do these things.
You mentioned that the Senate is holding back on the things that could have, improved on the transparency of our elections, almost as though you think that there is a sinister move here.
Yes, because why would the Senate reject for it? Because we keep talking about this transmission because it's the biggest part. But look at the body language of the Senate. It doesn't look like they really want us to have a clean election. Otherwise, why would they reject 10-year ban for vote buyers? What are they covering up? Nobody's talking about that. It's one of the provisions they rejected. There was a provision there for 10-year ban on vote buyers. They rejected that. They rejected 5 million naira fine and 2-year jail term for vote buying. They rejected that. Why are they rejecting things that would discourage people from rigging election? So it is in that light that I'm looking at them rejecting this mandatory transmission of results. Not that we can't achieve it, because if Ghana can do it, if Kenya can do it, if Brazil can do it, if India can do it, definitely Nigeria can do it. We are just not aspiring to be better. We're not aspiring to create the structure, infrastructure that will help us to have certainty of our election. So the Senate, okay, based on this their result, from what you can see here, I just mentioned 3 or 4 things that they rejected. It shows a Senate that is not pro-election, certainty, discouragement of rigging, but a Senate that is edging its bet. Otherwise, what do they have to lose by passing 10-year ban for vote buyers? Because they know they are the ones that are going to be buying the votes. That's why they're not passing it. Okay? We said 5 million naira fine. Is that too much to fine somebody for vote buying? No, they rejected that. So to me, this is not about the executive. I want us to be clear here. The Senate has a responsibility to pass the laws that the executive will then execute. So this is on Akpabio and his people. They are the ones that are not moving Nigeria towards electoral certainty. And they are sowing a seed of discouragement. Because a lot of youths, that's why they don't want to vote.
I was just going to ask you that, before we even get to that, yes. I wanted you to sort of clarify something for us. When the term, just look at that term in terms of the legal connotation of it in this context, the transfer and transmission. I want you to break that down for us, because a lot of people are wondering, what's the difference and what does this mean in this context? Some people are just like, well, some people who are a bit complacent on this matter is basically because they don't understand transfer and transmit. So I wanted to speak, sort of explain that for us. Transfer
is a broader term. You can transfer election results from polling booths to the collation center in different ways. Transfer can be by manual, you carry it by car. Transfer can be you take a picture and send it somewhere. A transfer can be you transmit. But transmission is only one thing. You send it via electronic method to the collation center. That is narrow, that is clear, that is transparent. But transfer is where you start having all these discretion. So transfer is a broad term that gives a lot of discretion to the electoral officers, which is what we are saying we don't want, because it always leaves room to interpretation. When you are doing transfer, the guy on ground can say, we are going to transfer to the collation center by putting it in vans, the raw votes in vans and taking it there. Or we are going to be taking the sheets by road, or we are going to take a screenshot and send screenshots to the collation center. But transmission, there is no room for interpretation. Okay?
So that's like saying, I am going to give you money. Transfer is like saying, I'm going to give you money, but not telling you how I'm going to send it. It could be by check, it could be by electronic transfer, or it could be by cash. And then transmit is basically saying, I'm going to do a transfer, a bank transfer, or an ATM, and they give you cash. I mean, just being very 100%. Specific as to how it's going to be done. Clarified. But in terms of voter participation, we've seen that continue to dwindle, or fluctuate rather. It depends on whether it's state or national election. And what does this mean for voter participation? What do you think how does this register in the mind of the average voter in Nigeria?
Well, let's be clear, the debate we are having is about technology versus tradition. It's about trust versus discretion. The voter participation, their fear has always been about trusting the system. Nigerians are not asking for miracles. They are asking for certainty. When election results depend on discretion instead of obligation, then confidence of the voters collapses because they already think or they know what is going to happen. Okay? Nigerians are not engaged because not because they don't care. They are disengaged because the system keeps telling them their votes do not matter. And when there is no certainty to be sure that when I vote, my vote is going to get to the collation center, then the desire to participate fully is dissipated. So that is what I think the Senate is telegraphing with this. Because the people might say, oh, am I saying the Senate acted in bad faith? I'm not going to say that, but I'm going to say outcome creates bad consequences. Because in law, we judge policies not by intentions, but by their effects. And the effect here is weakened public trust in our electoral process. So to me, they can't tell me that Nigeria doesn't have infrastructure for mandatory transmission.
For those who say, look, this is not a big deal, if there are other ways to ensure transparency, how do you react? Because, and I also want to ask you, beyond the electronic transmission of results, is there no other way around ensuring transparency in our electoral system? Because some people will tell you some of this, if quote rigging, happens even before the transfer or transmission of results. Vote buying, for example, is one of them.
Yes, the vote buying, I'm not going to say vote buying doesn't go towards transparency of election because people confuse that. See, vote buying, if somebody sells his vote, yes, it is bad, it is illegal, but what has that got to do with whether the election is transparent or not? Transparency in election is A, votes for so and so, B, votes for so and so, and their votes are counted. Who I choose to vote for is my decision. So if I sell my vote, you're not going to say that election is not transparent. You're not going to say that election is rigged. I don't.
What about credibility then?
Well, when you say, what do you mean credibility? Credibility is the credibility people are asking for, that I'm asking for, is that if there are 10 votes for A, let those 10 votes count. But whether Mr. Daniel sold his vote to Mr. Josiah, to me, it's got nothing to do with the credibility of the election. Every human being has a right to decide who he votes for.
So whether Mr. A, Mr. Banwo, just a minute, so whether Mr. A took a certain amount of cash to the polling unit to induce Mr. B to vote for Mr. C, it doesn't matter to you at all, except that would
No, that's not what I said.
No, when I say doesn't matter to you at all, it doesn't impact on the credibility and transparency of the election at all?
No, it doesn't, because the credibility is who did you vote for. A Nigerian citizen decides who is going to vote for. Interfering with the process is what you are talking about, okay? And that is illegal, and people do that, they should be jailed. That's why I was surprised that the Senate rejected 10-year ban on vote buyers. Those who are trying to buy the vote are the ones that are trying to destroy the fairness of our election. I get that, and they should be put in jail. They should be put in jail for 10 years. But Senate said no. They rejected that because they know they are the ones that are going to be buying the votes. But those are two separate things. The votes that are actually cast, let us have transparency in counting it to make sure people are not influenced negatively. The law can do its job to make sure that those who try to buy people's votes are put in jail. But if I vote, whether somebody paid me 1 naira or paid me 0, whoever I vote for is what the law says my vote is. Okay, and that part is what I'm saying they should have made sure it is transparent enough, where when we vote, what they receive at the collation center is exactly what we voted in the polling booth. There are two separate things. I'm not saying vote buying is right. It's definitely not right. And the Senate is has punted the ball. They are supposed to discourage it by making the punishment for it very huge. But they rejected it. They said, no, meaning that you can go buy votes now and there are no serious consequences, which is a destruction of our democratic system, because we are not going to really get people to vote their conscience. But that's a separate thing from transmission. So we have two problems: vote buying and counting the votes properly. Both should be addressed, right? But neither has been addressed now, because the Senate rejected jail time for vote buying.
I have 3 minutes left.
They also rejected transmission.
I have a few minutes left, Dr. Banwo, and one of the things I really wanted to ask you about is that we do this review at every election cycle, general election cycle, and I'm wondering, I mean, when you look at this particular one, has it achieved any aim of ensuring that we have free, fair, and credible polls at all? Just lawmakers sitting down to ensure that, okay, let's review and have a better, reduce litigation, have a free and fair election that citizens can trust. Have we achieved that in this cycle?
No, we have not. We have gone backwards, because the two major problems we have with our electoral system, they have refused to address it. Number one is vote buying. There's supposed to be a 10-year jail time for those who are buying votes. Senate rejected that. Number two problem we have in our election is that whatever people voted in the polling booths somehow gets corrupted or changed by the time it gets to the collation center. And the solution to that is automatic compulsory transmission of our votes. They also rejected that. So the two major problems we have in our electoral process, the Senate dropped the ball. And anybody who's trying to praise them for this, they really don't love Nigeria. Because they like you said, they do this exercise after every election. But because the people in the Senate are probably the ones who are even doing the rigging to begin with, that's why they got there. Many of them, they rigged their way there. So they are not ready to solve the problems that will eliminate the vote buying and vote changing, which are the two things. Transmission serves accuracy of the votes that we count, and then putting 10-year jail time when you buy votes discourages a lot of people from buying votes. But the Senate didn't give us either, and that is a shame.
Anyway, those are strong allegations to say they rigged their way there and they're the ones doing the vote buying. But we're hoping that constituents who are concerned, seriously concerned about this issue, begin to reach out to their lawmakers and voice their dissatisfaction or support or whatever it is, how they feel about this particular provision and this particular electoral act that has now been revised. Thank you so much for your time, as always. Always a pleasure to have you on. I'm a West-based lawyer and political affairs analyst, Dr. Banwo.
Thank you so much.
All right, that's the standpoint. Remember, the views and reactions of our resource persons are theirs and have no connection with TVC News. You can watch a repeat of this episode at 11 p.m. tonight and at 5 a.m. on Sunday morning. Thanks for watching. I am Precious Amayo.